Welcome to Green Dot Daily. I'm Maria Marino, live every weekday at 3 Eastern on the Action app and YouTube channel. We've got a loaded show today. NBA picks and analysis from J Money. We'll have college hoops talk with Mike Calabrese and even a golf pick from Spencer Aguiar. But we start with NFL as the sound from Super Bowl Media Day has poured in.
Yeah, we've dealt with a ton of adversity this season, dealt with a ton of challenges, and we're here. We're playing a great 49ers team, but we're going to go out there, play our best football, and see what happens. I appreciate it, Niners Nation. We're here.
Oh, Niners fans, he's calling you out.
I don't know if we're the evil empire, but we've won some games. Sometimes when you win games, people look at you a little different, but whatever. We just try to be ourselves.
Brock was the most consistent quarterback that I've been around, and it started that way in rookie camp to OTAs to training camp. But just what he did it wasn't a fluke. It wasn't just the record. It wasn't the stats. The film showed it, and that's why we knew if he would be healthy going into the next year, we had a hell of a quarterback.
I mean, the bottom line is, life isn't about you. That's what I believe, being a part of something bigger than yourself. You get wrapped up in getting all the glory and the fame and the status. I feel like that's a shallow life, and that can fade away pretty quickly.
I would say my offensive game plan is to give Christian McCaffrey the ball a lot because he's really good at football. Would you agree with me? And anytime he touches the ball, he go for 75 yards and a touchdown. So I'm going to try my best to block my best for him and get him as many touches as he can.
It's been fun to kind of gather the Swifties into Chiefs Kingdom and open them up to the football world and the sports world, and it's been cool to just experience all that.
We've had 23 experts out there. We've had the union out there. All of them think that's a very playable surface. It's softer than what they have practiced on, but that happens. It's well within all of our testing standards. It is something that we think all our experts, as well as neutral field inspectors, have all said unanimously that it's a playable field.
All right, now we say hello to Chad Millman and Simon Hunter. And let's start there because we know the Chiefs are practicing at a professional facility. But Simon, is there anything here? Do you take this into account at all when betting this game?
No, I mean, what can you really take from it? But it is interesting that one team is practicing, the other one isn't really practicing yet. So that's obviously not good if you're a 49ers team, that you need to get these reps in before the game. But Roger Goodell does what Roger Goodell does, right? He's the most expensive punching bag in the world. It's his job just to let people unload on him while he says nothing. So obviously, if you're a 49ers player, you would be upset. It is unfair. Why would you not be able to practice on a professional field instead of a college field? So I get where they're coming from, but at the end of the day, if the playing surface itself they're playing on isn't slick and they can get grip and they're happy to play on it, it really doesn't matter. As long as the Super Bowl is played out on a good field, unlike last season. But this season, it seems like this field they're playing on, the Raiders Stadium, is pretty good.
Oh, laying the groundwork, if you will, for a potential excuse. Now, Chad, I feel like as we've been dissecting this game, it can sound like Kansas City is the favorite. They're getting a lot of respect, and that has a lot to do with their experience, but they aren't the favorite. How does that mental aspect, though, factor in for you with this?
Well, for me, I'm like, fantastic. Bet on Patrick Mahomes as an underdog. All right. Twist my arm. And I think for the Chiefs, it plays right into what they would want for the perception to be. It allows them as the defending Super Bowl champs and Patrick Mahomes, who at this point, I think we can agree, is only chasing Tom Brady. I mean, the guy has played, I think this is his 5th Super Bowl in 6 seasons as a starter. He's got MVPs. He's chasing passing records. There's really nothing he needs to motivate him except a chip on his shoulder, because for some reason, after all that success, people think he should be an underdog in the Super Bowl. So I think that is hugely motivating. And I also think, by the way, it puts pressure on the Niners, who have had to come back in multiple games, who, as a coach, Kyle Shanahan has struggled in this spot. Don't forget, they've lost in other NFC title games. Don't forget, they lost to the Chiefs in a Super Bowl in which they were ahead by 10. Don't forget, Kyle Shanahan was the offensive coordinator when the Atlanta Falcons were up 28-3. So I think it's added motivation for the Chiefs and added pressure for the 49ers.
Want to talk X's and O's for a minute here, Simon. What is the matchup that you think is going to be most key in this game?
Can the Chiefs stop McCaffrey? I feel like that's going to be the big deal here. It's their weakness is the run. We all know that's the reason we all like the Ravens against them. That's their biggest weakness. You break down the film, you dive into all the numbers, it's all there. Like if they ran the ball, I honestly believe this. If they ran the ball 40 straight times, I think they could possibly win this game. Even though it's not even a slight to Purdy, that's just how dominant the run scheme is of Shanahan and how big of a weakness it is to that Chiefs team, right? The Chiefs have undersized linebackers, right? So they're great in pass coverage, but against the run, they struggle. That's where McCaffrey excels. So my favorite thing to watch here is just the Mahomes effect. Will Mahomes go up, take a lead, and will they panic and pass just like the Ravens did? And I think they will. Like, that's what I'm banking on here, where it's like Mahomes has some type of effect on these other teams where he makes them get out of their game plan. So that's definitely going to be the matchup of the game, where if they can stop the run, that really is going to seal the deal for the Chiefs. The Chiefs want to make them pass the ball. That's where the Chiefs excel. Their secondary is, top notch. It's just their struggle is against the run, but we've seen it this season, right, Chad? If they get a lead, the teams start passing the ball. That's what the Chiefs want them to do. So that's definitely a matchup we're going to be watching early on.
I'm glad you said it.
Yeah, I would agree. Sorry to interrupt you there, Maria, but I'm just so excited to talk about the game. The psychological impact of how Patrick Mahomes changes the way coaches call plays and quarterbacks playing against him play. You just automatically assume you're going to have to score every time you have the ball because you're afraid to give the ball back to Patrick Mahomes. And this year, that fear is exacerbated because of how good this defense has been as a scoring defense, one of the two best scoring defenses in the NFL, and they just beat the other one. And in the second half of games this year, they're allowing 4 points a game to the Dolphins, the Ravens, and the Bills. This is a dominant scoring defense. It plays with the heads of anybody they are facing.
All right, we've kept the people waiting long enough. Are we going Chiefs +2 or what, Simon?
Yeah, me and Chad talked about it last week. If my game script, what I hope is the way it's going to go, is a dominant performance by the Chiefs defense. So the Chiefs +2, Chiefs money line, and the under. It's the play I have to make. And I've had a couple reach out to me about, would I rather just take the money line to the +2? You can. I mean, Evan gave us numbers last week. The teams that usually cover, they win outright. So yeah, obviously you want to take the +110, +115. The value is there. But we like key numbers here, and 2 is a key number. So I'm just as happy to take the +2 as I am to take the money line.
Chad,
Simon is speaking for me. He is totally speaking for me. We are on the same page. We are betting buddies. We are simpatico. You name it, we're together.
You guys are compadres, as you always say on the Favorites podcast. And I know you guys will be diving into it much, much more on that podcast. Chad Millman and Simon Hunter, we appreciate you joining Green Dot Daily.
Thank you.
It's time for Tim's Takeaways with Tim Kalinowski. Hello, Tim. What is up? I hear you are heading out to Vegas to cover the Super Bowl for us. How are you feeling about this?
Yeah, I mean, they're sending out the big guns, obviously, the most important people, highest payroll, this and that sort of thing. Not staying for the actual game, not quite in
that says a lot about your payroll.
Yeah, tickets are indeed expensive for this event, Maria. But yeah, I'm going to Vegas, and I haven't been at 25 years old. I was supposed to go right before March Madness, right before COVID. So we were like already, all our friends were arguing over, are we still going to go? Are they going to cancel these games? What's going to happen? And we never went. So I tried to go and didn't work out. Now I am going.
I mean, there is quite a buildup for this, it sounds like. So what's the plan of attack?
So we're going to be, interviewing, we're on the coattails of, our friends at Playmaker. And so like they have a bunch of big things going on, celebrities, athletes, whatnot. So I'm kind of just picking up all the scraps. I get, 5-10 minutes or so with everybody that slips through the cracks or everyone that does a hit with them and can talk to us at Action. And I'll say this, like, I'm terrified, one, to be hungover and be ass dragging during these things, because I got to be on if I'm only getting 10 minutes with this person or that person. And I'm also afraid to ask dumb questions, because let's be frank, Maria, this Super Bowl, I feel like it just doesn't kind of have the stick of like other games. I don't know what I feel like the Lions, if the Lions were in it, it'd be a different story. Do you feel me in that sentiment at all?
I do, in a way. I think there's definitely Chiefs fatigue,
Mhm.
right? So that's part of it. And sure, the Lions would give you like a super unique storyline, but these two were kind of like the expected teams in a way. I'm not talking about middle of the season when the Chiefs were
Right.
doing poorly, but like when you think about the pedigree of the Chiefs, you expect it. So I guess I understand, but I don't know. I'm still excited about it.
I'll tell you why I think it's a bit challenging. The Taylor Swift thing has become
Mm.
super polarizing. Like, as someone who doesn't care at all about it, I like Taylor Swift. I'm interested in Taylor Swift. When Kelce scores, I'm like, hey, I wonder what Swift's doing. Like, did she cheer? Did she see it? Like, I don't care. It doesn't harm me. But for other people, it's a serious thing. They don't want anything to do with it. I'll also say, like, with the storylines in terms of, is Mahomes catching Brady, this and that, even if Mahomes wins, right, he's still on his way to Brady. It's not like this would be 6 or something like that.
Right.
It's like the story, the bookend isn't quite shut per se. So
Right. And I think he's chasing Brady regardless, whether he wins or loses.
it 100%. And I've
Yeah.
said to you, the story on the Chiefs and will Mahomes reach Brady still has a lot to do with what happens when they go through that middle lull. The Pax Romana back down to up again, that the Patriots were able to navigate that other dynasties kind of haven't. That's inevitable in a sense that Kelce will retire, Reed, who knows with him. So I feel like that story's still evolving. And then also the Purdy thing of like, even if Purdy wins, it's like, oh well, he's a system quarterback, and like, and whatever side wins, it's rigged. So I know that's a pessimistic view as I'm going to Vegas,
Mm.
but I'm trying to figure out what the juice is. I just don't want to say the wrong thing, Marie. I don't want someone to say that's stupid.
First of all, that's not going to happen. You're going to just charm everyone with your personality. And by the way, if you get 10 minutes, I mean, that's a lot of time. You're lucky. So I think that might be too much time. You might run out of things to say. So I think you're
get
just going to have to
5
go with your gut.
I get 5 with you and you're exhausted. So I mean, I guess that's all you
How
need to
dare
know.
you? I was trying to give you a compliment with your amazing interviewing skills. Okay, let's talk about betting the Super Bowl. How do you like to bet on the big game? I mean, what's your angle?
So here's the thing. A lot, I get asked all the time, what about the novelty props? What it is? And part of going to
Yeah.
Vegas in brainstorming talking points is like, oh, the Gatorade, the anthem, all that. Look, it's all fun. I bet it all. But like I'm gonna sit here and be able to tell you an angle on that. I'm not the guy there with his phone out recording the rehearsal. So, but what I do like is some of these novelty props that aren't necessarily tied into something that has nothing to do with the game really, but that are more player prop oriented. So for example, I gave you for the national championship, I bet this for every big game, Super Bowl, whatnot, but over 2.5 players to have a passing attempt. And it's just my favorite bet of all time in these big games. The Chiefs have been a team that with their gimmick gadget plays, it's been no secret, no surprise if we saw Kelce with a shovel pass, or I don't know, maybe Tony rolls out and throws a pass. But anyway, so it didn't hit last year. It hit the year before, 2022. Joe Mixon actually threw a touchdown pass. Then no, before that, in 2020, Debo, they had a designed play for him to throw, but he tucked it and ran. 2018, it did happen. Both teams actually. 2019, no. 2017, yes. So that means
Hmm.
3 out of the last 7 years, sort of 4 out of 7. Either way, I've been in rooms where that other player throws a pass and I get up and go, yes! And it's like a 2-yard incompletion. And people go, how did you have anything to do with that? I'm like, oh yeah, I bet over 2.5 players to have a pass attempt.
I could see that being very fun if it hits in a Super Bowl party setting. Like that's the ultimate.
Yes.
Anything else?
Yeah, I'm also looking at Caesars is offering this quite interesting market here. It's they're offering odds on players' first rush, the over/under of yards, first pass, first reception, this and that, but also like an exact in terms of direction. So, for instance, you could bet Patrick Mahomes' first rush to the left, to the right, how many yards. And I went back to Mahomes' scrambles this year, or at least in the playoffs last 3 games. So he scrambled to the right 2 of these 3 games for the first time. All 3 of them, even left or right, were over 11 plus yards. So on Caesars, you can bet Mahomes' first rush to the left for 10, or excuse me, to the right for 10 plus yards plus 700. And ain't that fun? If Mahomes rolls to the right for a first down, 10 plus, you get up and you scream in your Super Bowl party and say, how could you have money on that play? And there you go.
I love it. I think it's super unique. And you could even probably dive deeper into the film study and really go back, through the whole season, his tendencies, and maybe even study the, opposing line on the Niners side as well.
Maria, this is a fun bet. That is for the dorks. I don't have time to be a
Okay,
dork.
gotcha. Sorry.
These are bets,
I don't want to
Maria.
take the fun out of it.
These are bets, Maria, for going, oh yeah, I remember he ran to the right that one time. Yeah, it was a pretty big gain. That's
got it. Okay, so ran to the right twice out of the last 3 times on the first rush. That's enough. Got it. And super fun payoff if you actually get the win. Tim Kalinowski, thanks so much. Enjoy Vegas. Good luck.
Thank you, Maria. Can't wait to tell you all about it.
Yes. To the NBA, it's not exactly breaking news, but the injury history for Joel Embiid has not been great in his career. Started with a foot injury that caused him to miss 164 games, tore a meniscus back in 2017, had some more minor injuries in the years following that, but here again this season, dealing with another meniscus tear. And with that, we got Jay Money back on the show. So Embiid had a procedure Tuesday. He's going to be reevaluated in 4 weeks. Forget winning the East at this point. Are the 76ers in danger of missing the playoffs?
It's crazy, Maria, because they were the team that was looking like they could really contend with the Boston Celtics this year. But I'm starting to really get worried about the Sixers. Just my opinion, I think that they might want to rest him for the rest of the season. In my opinion, just it's never a bad thing to look towards next season and want him to your best player to be totally healthy. But I'm worried about like when the Sixers, when he does come back. Is he going to be in MVP form? Like they need peak performance from Joel Embiid to compete in the Eastern Conference playoffs as well. And with the amount of falls that he takes per game, it's just like how long will he stay healthy? This guy falls down probably 10 times a game, and I wish there was a betting prop on how many times Embiid would fall per game. But I'm really worried about the mindset of the Sixers for the rest of the season. We don't know how his body is going to react to this surgery, and when he comes back, and he's obviously going to have to ramp back up as well and try to get in shape. So. Especially going against teams like the Pacers that run up and down the court, I'm really worried about the state of the 76ers. And just my opinion, I think that they should probably just go ahead and rest them for the regular season.
I mean, it would be a shame if the 76ers had another year in the postseason where they didn't have their MVP level player healthy. But I think there's some merit to what you're saying in terms of the regular season. I mean, keep evaluating him as he goes. Obviously, if he's healthy, you want him in, but the regular season, we know it's just not that important in the grand scheme. But moving on to tonight and the slate, why don't we get your first pick?
Yeah, so I'm going with the Utah Jazz plus the 3 tonight. This team is actually the number 1 ATS team in the league at home at 17-6 against the spread. They're also 10-4 against the spread as a home underdog. That's good for 71.4%. This is just where they come. This is where they play their best basketball as well. The arena's packed. Utah basketball is coming back, man. This is also a fade spot for the Thunder, in my opinion. This is their 6th game in 10 days, their 9th game in 15 days, and they're coming off of a double overtime game versus the Toronto Raptors. So don't be a bit surprised if we kind of saw what happened with the Bucks in the last game, where the Jazz just come surging in the second half, mainly in the fourth quarter. We know that they have the highest altitude in the NBA. So give me the Jazz here, full game plus a 3. And I actually think they win this game outright.
Very nice. And you had mentioned the big win the Jazz had over the Bucks. Well, the Bucks are back in action tonight against the Suns. Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, I like the Milwaukee Bucks here. The dogs are barking, Maria. I like the dogs. We're in the dog days of the NBA, but I'm taking another underdog here, Milwaukee Bucks plus the 4 in this one. They're coming off a bad loss, as I just mentioned, versus the Utah Jazz. They got outscored 40-13 in their fourth quarter. They simply just ran out of gas in that one. Obviously, there is no matchup for Giannis in this game as well. He might go bonkers in this game. I wouldn't be surprised if he went for 45 points and 15 rebounds in this game. Name me one player for the Phoenix Suns that's going to stop Giannis tonight. I'm just not sure who that is. Now, I can say they do still have Brook Lopez that's on the injury report, but even bigger than that is Damian Lillard with an ankle sprain. As long as I get Lillard in there, this game is a go for me. I don't really, obviously they're going to miss Brook Lopez, but I don't think he means as much to them as Damian Lillard, because obviously you need that tandem of Lillard and Giannis going up against Booker, Beal, and Kevin Durant. But the Suns are in an absolute brutal spot here tonight. This is their first game home, coming back off of a 7-game East Coast road trip. This is always a fade spot in the NBA, in my opinion. I know it's the last game of a 5-game road trip for the Bucks, but at least they've been on the western side over there. So Suns having to fly over a couple of time zones. I just really don't see I don't really think that you're going to get the best version of the Phoenix Suns tonight. So and I don't think they should be laying points as well. Give me the Milwaukee Bucks here plus the 4, and I also think they win this game outright.
The dog days are here. The All-Star game is coming up. We got the trade deadline later this week. And J Money, look forward to talking to you again then.
Anytime, Maria.
Hey everybody, it's Joe Dellera, and I've got a couple of my favorite plays for this Tuesday NBA slate. The first play that I'm looking at is Josh Hart over 13.5 rebounds plus assists. Tonight, the Knicks have a matchup against the Grizzlies, who have essentially been trotting around what's amounted to be a bench squad without Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, and Marcus Smart. Plus, Jaren Jackson Jr. is doubtful for tonight's game as well. One player to target is Josh Hart. He's been an absolute wagon on this line without OG Anunoby and Julius Randle, and he's hit this in 4 straight games while averaging 17.3 rebounds plus assists on 40.3 minutes per game. His presence on the floor as not only a rebounding threat, but as a secondary or tertiary facilitator is incredibly important for this Knicks team. The Grizzlies, just not a good team right now, and there should be plenty of opportunities for easy buckets on offense and to clean the glass on both sides. I like Josh Hart to continue his strong play and exceed 13.5 rebounds plus assists. For the next play, we're looking at Simone Fontecchio over 11.5 points plus rebounds. The Jazz, they host the Thunder today, and they have a significant rest advantage as the Thunder will play their 6th game in 9 days. So I like to target Fontecchio in this spot. His points and rebounds line is set at 11.5, a number he's exceeded in 7 of his last 10 games, and he smashed it in both games against OKC with a 19-2 performance along with a 12-5 performance. When OKC gets tired, the defense falters. They get lax, they're a little bit slower to rotate, and this is something that Fontecchio can take advantage of as a sharp shooting wing. I'll grab him to exceed 11.5 points plus rebounds. Finally, we're looking at my favorite French fry. We got Rudy Gobert over 12.5 or 13.5 rebounds. I know this line has kind of moved in the market. Look, the Minnesota Timberwolves, they head to Chicago to take on the Bulls, and this is a great matchup for Rudy against Nikola Vucevic. Gobert's been an absolute force in this spot. He's cleared his rebounds line in 12 consecutive head-to-head contests against Vooch. He's averaged 16.6 rebounds per game in these matchups. And when Vooch has been on the Bulls, he's gotten 19, 20, 19, and 13 rebounds against him. Gobert already leads the league in rebounding chances with 21.8 per game to go along with 12.5 rebounds per game. And he's exceeded this line of 12.5 in 10 of his last 15 games as well. The Bulls have just surrendered monster rebounding games to centers this season, including Hartenstein with 20, Wembanyama with 20, Jared Allen 17, Yusuf Nurkic 17, and Nikola Jokic 16. Gobert should join their ranks tonight, and I'll definitely play a couple alts as well. I like him to go over 12.5 or 13.5 rebounds in this spot. So to recap, my 3 favorite plays for today's NBA slate are Josh Hart over 13.5 rebounds plus assists, Simone Fontecchio over 11.5 points plus rebounds, and Rudy Gobert over 12.5 or 13.5 rebounds. Best of luck on your wagers today, and enjoy the rest of your Tuesdays.
Thanks a lot to Joe. Now to the college hardwood. Our expert Mike Calabrese joins us now. Packed slate of games tonight, and especially featuring ranked teams. Where are you going for your first pick?
I'm going to go to Hawk Hill. Join me down on City Line Ave as St. Joe's is hosting Dayton. Dayton laying 2.5. And it makes sense that this game is so tight in terms of the point spread. St. Joe's has the interior defense to give Holmes some problems, even though he's playing at a national player of the year level at times, averaging 28 and 3 stocks per game. They've been really effective in the paint defensively, but the Hawks remain overly reliant on the 3-point shot. They hoist up 28 per game. That's 16th nationally. And the Flyers do a great job defending the 3-point line. Their opponents are making less than 31% of their attempts, which is 40th nationally. And then the deciding factor for me is that St. Joe's has been living on the edge. They have 3 one-possession wins in their last 5 games, not including their 12-point comeback against LaSalle in their last game. And for that reason, I think they're a little bit overinflated in the market right now. I'll take the Flyers, who, in my opinion, are clearly the class of the A10. And this is a game where Holmes, if he stays on the floor and out of foul trouble, I think they easily cover the 2.5.
Yes, Dayton first place in the A10 right now at 8-1. St. Joe's 5-4 in the conference. Okay, what else do you like?
All right, I'm going to take a rematch here. Colorado State hosting Boise State, and they couldn't throw it in the ocean in their first meeting. It was ridiculous. They shot 4 for 16. Their All-American point guard, Isaiah Stevens, had his most turnovers the entire season. You actually have to go back 3 years of him starting for the Rams to find a game in which he turned it over more. Yet, despite all of that negativity, they were still within 4 points with 90 seconds left on the road against Boise State. I'm going to fade the Broncos here. I think this is the peak of their value in the market. They're tied for first in the Mountain West Conference. Colorado State is hungry. They're trying to get back into that race. This is a team that just 3 weeks ago was comfortably in the top 25. They hit a bit of a skid, but I think they've righted the ship, and they looked particularly effective on the defensive end against San Diego State 2 games ago. They did a great job on Ledee in the paint, Joel Scott, Patrick Cartier. That's going to be the key here. If they're stout inside against Boise State, I think they're going to be able to hold them below 70 points. And then I always love a Nico Medved offense at home to go ahead, keep their foot on the gas, and score in the 80s.
Revenge game loading, and Stevens leads the team in scoring, averaging over 16 points per game. He'll want to make up for that performance, although he had 15, but you said the turnovers, that's what really killed him. And that one tips at 9 Eastern. Mike Calabrese, thanks so much for the time.
Thanks, Maria.
Over to golf, and last week on Action Network, our contributor Spencer Aguiar bet Wyndham Clark at 100-1 to win at Pebble Beach, and it hit. He had quoted Babe Ruth in his analysis saying, "I swing big with everything I've got. I hit big or I miss big. I like to live as big as I can." And live big you did. Spencer Aguiar, congrats, and thanks for joining us on Green Dot Daily. It's going to be a tough act to follow, but who's your outright pick for the WM Phoneix Open?
So, I talked a lot last week, whether I did links and locks for Action Network or even that article that you just brought up a second ago about how Wyndham Clark was not necessarily the most profitable outright bet that I'd ever hit when I had him at 100-1 during the US Open last year. Perhaps this go around might even be more impactful hitting him here at Pebble Beach. But I think it's an interesting position here that we have, because if we want to get technical of what the most profitable bet I've ever made would be, it would be Corey Connors during the 2019 Valero Texas Open. I bet him at 250-1 as a Monday qualifier. I'm not saying this is the same value spot that we got that tournament. You know, he's a borderline unknown journeyman. He's turned himself into a top 50 player in the world over the past few years. However, Connors does have a particular skill set that possesses a much higher ceiling to win at specific venues than others. I grabbed this early on Monday at 70-1. We've since seen that drop into the 60-1 range at most shops, but I thought TPC Scottsdale has historically been a venue that rewards ball striking and finding fairways, all while removing putting from the equation. You don't really have to look any further than 5 of the last 8 winners landing as Scotty Scheffler twice, Hideki Matsuyama twice, and Gary Woodland once. Those are not necessarily the guys you think of that make putts. You also have what might be the king of team no putt when we look historically data perspective wise in Kyle Stanley when he took down this event in 2012. So I'm going to trust the 6th place grade in my model for ball striking that I had for him. He has a top 15 return at historically priced TPC properties. I thought this opened 20 points higher than it should have in the market. And I also think if you just want to play this a little bit safer, plus 550 for a top 20 is another route to consider here.
Very good advice. And you also like to bet matchups. Can you explain a bit about your process and if there's one specifically you like for this tournament?
Yeah, so we're still waiting on matchups to enter the sports books at a lot of these places. My preferred strategy always comes down to trying to take on opponents versus grabbing the players I like for the week. I think there's a lot of hidden value in head-to-head bets that are going to stem mainly from the miscut equity that we can grab, specifically during these events that do still have a cut. I thought Taylor Montgomery, Thomas Dietrich, those were 2 options that I do have fade potential against if we get the right opponents against them. But the one play, Maria, that I'm going to give out on this show is going to be Eric Van Rooyen minus 106 over Christian Bezuidenhout. I think the thing about this play that I don't love, and I want to give a negative before I get into the positives here, is that Bezuidenhout is a safer commodity than I normally would target in some of these matchups. You know, he's just outside the top 50 in my overall head-to-head rank. He marginally climbs from there for the safety that he has just because of the hard start that he's gotten to the 2024 season. However, I'm going to pinpoint this back to the data and why my model doesn't love him outside of the past TPC play that he's presented, and then the weighted proximity that he's going to have here. And that's an area that gets reduced by over 5% at TPC Scottsdale versus a normal course. Bezuidenhout ranked for me 79th for weighted scoring. That's specifically for this venue. 75th in expected weighted tee to green play. Once again, I mimic that for this course. And 112th for aggression. I've been a massive believer this week, and that's kind of been my sentiment that has made me a little bit different in a lot of the articles and the podcast that you'll hear shortly this week over at Links and Locks if you listen. I think you have to be an aggressive player to actually win at this tournament. And while we're talking about a head-to-head bet here, Bezuidenhout doesn't necessarily get that same negative trajectory that comes into play. But when you place him against a golfer like Van Rooyen, who has 9 top 30 finishes globally in his past 10 starts, that's going to include a victory at the Worldwide Technology Championship in November. I just think those safety numbers still push us in the direction of Van Rooyen. And then all of a sudden you get into this upside territory where Van Rooyen has really started to put the pieces together over the past 4 or 5 months. Thought anything in that 100 to 1+ range also made sense as an outright. No, that's an extra additional bet that I'm giving here for anybody listening, but not necessarily my favorite head-to-head play that I've given on the year, but I still think there's enough value here at that 106 price to punch that ticket.
Well, we hope you keep the hot streak going. Spencer Aguiar, thanks so much for joining us on Green Dot Daily.
Thank you for having me, Maria.
Remember, any picks we give out here on the show, like the ones you just heard from Spencer, you can easily reference by following Green Dot Daily in the Action app. We keep track so you don't have to. That's all for Green Dot Daily. I'm Maria Marino. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll miss tomorrow's show, but Brendan Glasheen will have you covered at 3 Eastern on the Action Network YouTube channel and the Action app.